Notice what your hand does the moment a pen touches paper. The shoulder drops a fraction of an inch. The wrist anchors. The breath shortens, then evens out. The eyes narrow toward the page. A whole cluster of small physical events fires at once, and the body shifts into a posture it only adopts when something is about to be written. The body is doing this before the mind has decided what the words are going to be. The body knows that writing is coming, and the body prepares. This response is wired into you. It has been wired into humans for as long as humans have been making marks on surfaces. The act of writing engages a specific configuration of the body, the senses, and the inner mind that is different from any other configuration available to a person. Speaking engages one configuration, thinking engages another. Writing engages a third, and the third one is the one we are going to walk through. Because what happens inside the deeper mind when a person writes a money number every morning is one of the cleanest demonstrations of how the inner machinery actually works. We are going to do this through a series of pictures. The writing of one number on one page every morning will be shown through 5 different angles, and each angle will reveal a different layer of what is operating underneath. By the time we finish, the act of writing a single number with a pen on a piece of paper at dawn will look the way it should look, which is one of the most surgically precise instructions the inner mind ever receives. Okay, let's get into it. The first angle is the carving knife. Think about what a sculptor does. A sculptor takes a block of stone and removes material. The sculptor uses a tool to cut grooves into the stone. The grooves are precise. The grooves are deep. The grooves stay. A sculptor working with a chisel makes a mark on the stone that the stone will carry for as long as the stone exists. The chisel is the input. The stone is the medium. The groove is the result. Now think about thinking. Thinking is the sculptor working without a chisel. Thinking is the sculptor running their hand across the surface of the stone, imagining where the cuts might go. The stone receives nothing. The surface stays smooth. The thinking happens. The thinking ends. Nothing is left behind on the stone except the memory of having thought about it. Now think about speaking. Speaking is the sculptor with a soft tool. Speaking presses into the surface of the stone but leaves only a faint impression. The impression fades. The stone has felt the pressure. The stone has registered something. The mark stays for a while and then smooths back out. Speaking is louder than thinking. The stone holds the speaking longer than it holds the thinking. The stone still holds neither for long. Writing is the chisel. When a person writes a number on a page, they are picking up the chisel. Multiple channels of the inner mind engage simultaneously. The eyes track the pen forming the shape of the number. The hand executes the motor program for each digit. The arm carries the muscle memory of how that digit feels to write. The shoulder anchors the movement. The page receives the ink. The inner mind processes all of these channels at once, files them together as a single event, and stores the event with all of its sensory signatures attached. The number gets carved into the stone. Hill knew this in 1937. He prescribed writing as the central act in the construction of a definite chief aim. The 6 steps in Chapter 2 of Think and Grow Rich all converge on the act of writing. Write the exact amount of money you intend to acquire. Write what you intend to give in return. Write the deadline. Write the clear statement. Read what you wrote aloud, morning and night, with feeling. The whole architecture is built around the difference between thinking about a goal and writing it down. Hill knew the chisel was the chisel and the imagined hand was the imagined hand. The mechanism operates through multi-channel impression. Hill called the channels by different names than modern instruments would use, but the law he documented holds. The deeper mind accepts an instruction in proportion to the number of sensory channels carrying the instruction at the same time. Thinking uses one channel. Speaking adds a second. Writing adds a third. Feeling adds a fourth. The more channels engaged at once, the deeper the carve. You can see this in observable behavior. A person who has been thinking about a financial target for years, who has talked about it with friends, who has read books about it, walks around with a vague impression of the target. The target moves. The target shifts shape. The target sometimes disappears entirely under the weight of daily life. The same target, written by hand on a piece of paper every morning for 30 days, stops moving. The number locks in. The person can recall it instantly in any context because the carve is now in the stone. This is the first angle. Writing is the chisel. The number you write becomes a carved groove in the deeper mind that thinking and speaking cannot produce. The morning page is the chisel coming back to the same groove, every day deepening the same line in the stone, until the line becomes permanent. You with me on that? If you have been with us for any length of time, you know we go all the way. If this is hitting you right now, drop a like. It helps get this in front of the right people. Okay. The second angle is the dawn doorway. The inner mind has windows. There are periods of the day when the doorway between the conscious layer and the deeper layer stands open, and periods when the doorway is closed. The lineage figured this out generations before instruments could measure it. Hill prescribed reading the definite chief aim statement twice daily, morning and night, on purpose. He had observed across 500 lives that these two windows produced different results than any other time of day, and he wanted readers to use the windows the way they were meant to be used. The morning window is the wider of the two. In the first few minutes after waking, the conscious layer is still adjusting back into its full operating mode. The reasoning, the analysis, the criticism, the comparison, all of the functions that normally guard the gate between conscious and deeper, are still warming up. The doorway is wide. Anything you place into the deeper mind during this window arrives with less interference than it would later in the day. The mechanism operates like this. Picture the inner mind as a house. The conscious mind lives upstairs. The deeper mind lives in the basement. Between them is a doorway. During most of the day, a guard sits at the doorway examining everything that tries to pass through. The guard is the rational, analyzing, doubting layer of the conscious mind. The guard's job is to filter what gets into the basement. When the guard is awake, only instructions that pass certain tests are allowed through. When the guard is partially asleep, the doorway stands open and things pass through unchallenged. The minutes immediately after waking are the guard's slowest minutes. The guard has not yet had coffee. The guard has not yet read any news. The guard is still in the chair, half asleep, half aware. Anything you carry through the doorway during these minutes goes straight to the basement. The deeper mind receives the instruction with full force, because the layer that would normally challenge the instruction is still asleep. This is why writing one number every morning, in the first quiet minutes of the day, operates differently than writing the same number at 3 in the afternoon. The number written at 3 in the afternoon has to argue its way past the fully awake guard. The number written at 6 in the morning walks past the sleeping guard and arrives in the basement before the guard knows it was there. Nightingale spoke about this in the recordings he made through the 1950s and 60s. He said the deeper mind is most receptive in the moments between sleep and waking. He told his listeners to read their goals during this window. He had taken what Hill documented in 1937 and given it to a generation through audio. The first spoken word record to sell 1 million copies was teaching this exact principle, in plain language, to people driving their cars to work. You can watch this in observable behavior. 2 people set the same financial target. The first writes the target in a journal at random times throughout the day, whenever they remember. The second writes the target on a small card every morning within the first 10 minutes after waking. 3 months later, the first person still has to consciously remember the target. The second person finds the target arriving in their mind unprompted, in conversations, in decisions, in moments of choosing. The target has been installed in the basement of the second person. The target is still being argued with by the guard in the first person. The dawn doorway is the second angle. The morning window is when the doorway between conscious and deeper stands open, and writing during this window carries the instruction past the guard with minimal interference. Let that sit for a moment. The third angle is wet cement. Imagine a contractor pouring a sidewalk. The cement comes out of the truck as a soft gray mixture that can be poured, shaped, Leveled? The contractor smooths it out. The contractor knows the cement has a window of workability. For a short time, anything pressed into the cement leaves an impression. A handprint, a footprint, a name traced with a stick. After a couple of hours, the cement is hard. After a week, the cement is the sidewalk it will be for the next 40 years. The mark left in the first hour is the mark that stays. The marks attempted in the second day leave no trace at all. The deeper mind operates with a similar window every morning. In the first few minutes after waking, the inner state is workable. The setting of the day has not yet hardened. The thoughts, the moods, the priorities, the assumptions that will guide the next 16 hours are still wet. Whatever gets pressed into the wet cement of the morning becomes the shape of the day. The mark stays. The day organizes around the mark. This is why writing one money number every morning is so different from writing the same number any other time. The morning number is pressed into wet cement. The deeper mind receives the instruction, while the day is still soft. The day then sets around the instruction. Every decision made during the day, every conversation entered into, every priority assigned and dismissed gets shaped by the instruction that was pressed into the cement at the start. The mechanism operates through the orientation of attention. The number you write in the morning becomes the orientation point for the deeper mind for the rest of the day. The orientation point is invisible to the conscious mind. The conscious mind goes about its business, thinking it is making free decisions about what to focus on. Underneath the conscious decisions, the deeper mind is filtering every option through the question, does this serve the number we wrote this morning? Options that serve the number get amplified into awareness. Options that work against the number get muted. The conscious mind experiences this as preference. The deeper mind is operating on the orientation point. You can see this in observable behavior. A person who writes a specific income target every morning starts noticing opportunities that match the target. They notice them as if by coincidence. A conversation that would have ended at the surface gets followed up because something in it caught the orientation point. A piece of information that would have scrolled past in the news feed gets read because it pinged the orientation point. A relationship that was dormant gets reactivated because the orientation point recognized something useful. The day organizes around the number. The number organizes the day. Drop a comment and tell us which part of this you are going to sit with for a while. The wet cement angle reveals something the other angles miss. The morning is not just a time of receptivity. The morning is a time of structural setting. The mark you make sets the structure. The structure determines the day. The day determines the week. The weeks determine the year. The year determines the life. All of it traces back to the wet cement of the first 10 minutes. That right there, that is the whole game. Okay, the fourth angle is the magnet polarized. Take a piece of iron. Iron in its natural state is unmagnetized. The molecules inside the iron are arranged randomly. Half of them point one way, half of them point the other way. Their poles cancel each other out. The iron sits there inert, exerting no influence on anything around it. Now stroke the iron with a magnet, in one direction, over and over again. Each stroke nudges a small percentage of the molecules into alignment. The first stroke moves a few more. The 1000th stroke moves enough that the iron itself begins to exhibit magnetic properties. The molecules are now mostly aligned in one direction. Their pulls add together instead of canceling out. The iron has become a magnet. The deeper mind operates the same way. In its untrained state, the deeper mind has no dominant orientation toward any specific outcome. The molecules of attention point in every direction. The pulls cancel out. The person walks through life feeling pulled in many directions and arriving at none of them with the kind of force that produces results. Writing one number every morning is the stroke of the magnet. Each morning's writing nudges a small percentage of the deeper mind's attention into alignment with the number. The first morning moves a few molecules. The 10th morning moves a few more. The 90th morning moves enough that the deeper mind itself begins to exhibit a dominant orientation toward the number. The attention is now mostly aligned. The pulls add together. The person has become magnetized toward the outcome. This is what Hill was describing when he wrote about thoughts mixed with feeling becoming magnetic. He used the word magnet in Chapter 2 of Think and Grow Rich, on purpose. He had observed across hundreds of lives that the people who achieved extraordinary results behaved as if they were exerting a pull on their environment. People walked toward them with relevant offers. Opportunities aligned with their aims appeared without being chased. Resources gathered around them. Hill knew this was a function of polarization. The deeper mind, repeatedly stroked in the same direction by a daily written instruction, becomes magnetic. The magnetization is the result of the stroking. The number on the page every morning is the stroke. The carrier becomes the magnet. The magnet pulls its match. You can watch this in observable behavior. A person who has been writing the same money number every morning for 6 months begins to attract the conditions for that number to arrive. Not because they have done anything else differently. They are writing the number, and the writing is polarizing the deeper mind, and the polarized deeper mind is broadcasting at the frequency of the number, and the broadcast is pulling in the matching pieces. The person reports the changes as luck. The lineage knew they were the result of magnetization. Proctor used to demonstrate this in his seminars with an actual magnet and a pile of iron filings on a piece of paper. He would scatter the filings randomly. Then he would slide the magnet onto the paper. The filings would jump into alignment with the magnet's field. He would tell the room that this was a picture of what happens inside the deeper mind when it gets polarized by a written instruction. The filings are the resources of attention. The magnet is the dominant aim. The alignment is the polarization. The magnet polarized is the fourth angle. The deeper mind is iron in its natural state. Writing one number every morning is the repeated stroke of the magnet in one direction over enough days that the iron itself becomes magnetic and starts pulling the matching outcomes into its field. You see how that operates? The fifth angle is the engraver's BURIN. A BURIN is a hand tool used to engrave metal. It is held like a pen. The tip is sharp. The engraver presses the BURIN into the surface of a metal plate and pushes. The metal yields. A line opens. The line is precise, deep, permanent. The engraver works slowly, carefully, controlling every micro-movement of the tool. Engravers have produced some of the finest detail work in human history with this tool. The detail survives because the medium is metal, and the metal holds whatever is cut into it. Writing one money number every morning is the engraver pressing the BURIN into the deeper mind day after day until the line becomes a permanent feature of the inner landscape. The BURIN is the pen. The metal is the deeper mind. The line is the instruction being engraved. The mechanism operates through the precision of the act. Engraving is different from sketching, painting, smearing, or stamping. Engraving requires the engraver to commit to a single line executed with intention in one continuous motion. The act itself is a form of full presence. The engraver cannot be half engaged. The metal will reject any attempt to engrave without commitment. The line will be uneven, the cuts shallow. The result, useless. Engraving requires full attention. Writing a money number by hand every morning requires the same kind of full attention. The act is small enough to be done in a minute. The act is intentional enough that it cannot be done while distracted. The hand, the eye, the breath, the page, all converge on the formation of the digits. For the duration of the writing, the inner mind is fully present with the number. There is no other instruction competing for the channels. The number gets engraved without interference. This is the angle that explains why typing the number does not produce the same effect. Typing engages fewer channels. The fingers tap keys whose layout is memorized. The hand performs the same motion regardless of which letter or digit is being entered. The eye reads the screen, not the hand. The body is not committed to the formation of the digit. The act is faster and shallower. The metal of the deeper mind feels a stamp, not an engraving. The stamp fades. The engraving stays. Hill wrote about this in language appropriate to his era. He prescribed writing the definite chief aim statement by hand because he knew that the act of forming the letters by hand engaged a different layer of the inner mind than any other recording method available. Modern brain imaging confirmed about 60 years later what Hill prescribed on observation alone. The science caught up to the practice the lineage had been teaching for generations. You can watch this in observable behavior. A person who types their goals into a phone app every morning carries those goals with a certain weight. A person who writes the same goals on a piece of paper with a pen every morning carries those goals with a different weight. The difference shows up in their voice when they speak about the goals. The difference shows up in the certainty of their decisions. The difference shows up in the speed with which the goals begin to produce results in the world. The typed goals are stamps. The handwritten goals are engravings. Subscribe if you want more of this. We teach from Carnegie, Hill, Nightingale, Proctor, and the full lineage, and we go this deep every single time. The engraver's BURIN is the fifth angle. The act of writing by hand, with full attention, presses a line into the metal of the deeper mind that no other method can produce. The morning repetition deepens the same line, day after day, until the line is part of the permanent topography of who you are. Okay, 5 angles. 5 pictures of the same act. Writing one money number every morning is the sculptor's chisel. The doorway at dawn, the mark in wet cement, the stroke that polarizes the iron, and the engraver's BURIN pressing a permanent line into metal. The same act, viewed through 5 different angles, reveals 5 different operations happening at the same time. The 6th angle closes the cascade. The 6th angle is the architect's blueprint. Every building that has ever been built started as a drawing on a sheet of paper. The drawing existed before the building. The drawing was the building in compressed form on a different scale. The contractor read the drawing and built the building according to what the drawing showed. The building rose into the air from the foundation up. The shape of the building had been determined on the page before the foundation was poured. The deeper mind operates as both architect and contractor. The number you write every morning is the drawing on the page. The deeper mind reads the drawing. The deeper mind then begins constructing the conditions for the drawing to become reality. The conditions rise into your life from the foundation up. The shape of the conditions was determined on the page when you wrote the number. The mechanism operates through what Hill called the law of definiteness. The deeper mind requires a definite instruction in order to construct anything. A vague aim produces a vague structure. A precise number produces a precise structure. The more specific the drawing, the more specific the construction. The architect's role is to make the drawing. The contractor's role is to build from the drawing. Both roles are filled by the deeper mind simultaneously in service of whatever drawing has been provided. This is why the number matters more than the words around it. A page filled with hopes, dreams, and intentions produces a vague drawing. A page with one precise number on it produces a precise drawing. The drawing is what the deeper mind builds from. The drawing is what the construction follows. The drawing is the most specific instruction the architect can be given, which is why Hill prescribed writing the exact amount of money to the dollar with no rounding. Carnegie understood this when he commissioned Hill in 1908. Carnegie had built one of the largest fortunes in human history by being able to specify exactly what he wanted in exact numbers with exact deadlines and giving exact instructions to the people who would execute on his specifications. He knew the precision was the point. He timed Hill's answer to the commission with a stopwatch and gave Hill 29 seconds to decide. The precision of Carnegie's standard reflected the precision of the principle. Vague answers built vague lives. Precise answers built precise lives. The morning number is the drawing handed to the architect and the contractor at the same time. The architect studies it. The contractor begins gathering materials. The construction starts that day. The construction continues invisibly through every hour the deeper mind is operating, which is every hour, sleeping and waking. The building rises. The building rises in proportion to the precision of the drawing. The building rises faster the more often the drawing is presented. A drawing presented once is a drawing. A drawing presented every morning becomes a standing order. The construction crew shows up to work without being asked. You can watch this in observable behavior. A person who writes a precise number every morning, the same number with the same intention, begins to see the structure of their life rearranging in the direction of the number. Connections appear, resources align. Decisions that used to take weeks resolve in days. The deeper mind has been given a drawing precise enough to build from, and the building has begun. The conditions for the number to arrive show up as the natural product of the construction. That is the sixth angle. The architect's blueprint reveals that the morning number is the drawing the deeper mind uses to construct the conditions for the number to arrive. Precision in the drawing produces precision in the construction. Repetition of the drawing keeps the construction crew working. Let that settle. We have now walked through 6 angles on the same morning act. Writing one money number every morning is the chisel cutting the groove in the stone. Walking through the dawn doorway while the guard is still asleep. Pressing the mark into wet cement before the day sets. Stroking the magnet across the iron until the iron itself becomes magnetic. Pressing the engraver's BURIN into the metal of the deeper mind. Handing the architect and the contractor a precise drawing to build from. Every one of these operations is happening at the same time, inside the same minute, every morning that you pick up the pen and write the number. The lineage figured all of this out before instruments existed to measure any of it. Hill wrote it down in 1937. He had spent 20 years and over 500 interviews documenting the patterns. The act of writing came up so often in the interviews that he made it central to Chapter 2. Every person who had built significant wealth wrote their goals down. The pattern was so consistent that Hill treated it as law. He told his readers to do the same thing in the same way, for the same reasons. Nightingale picked up the same observation in the 1950s. He gave his listeners a 30-day challenge in the strangest secret. Write your goal on a small card, carry it with you. Look at it morning and night. Do this for 30 days. He had taken what Hill had documented and translated it into a practice anyone could execute. The principle held. The people who did the 30 days reported changes that people who did not do them never reported. Proctor carried this forward into his 60 years of teaching. He prescribed writing a money goal on a card and reading it every morning and night. He had grown up reading Think and Grow Rich, applied the principle to his own life, watched his income climb from $4,000 a year to $175,000 in a single year, and spent the rest of his life teaching the same practice. He told his audiences that the card in their pocket was the most important piece of paper they would ever carry. He meant it. He had built his life on it. Vasufi carries the torch today. He still teaches the writing practice. He still prescribes the morning number. The lineage has not changed the prescription in over 100 years, because the principle has not changed. The deeper mind still responds the same way to the same input. The chisel still cuts the same groove in the same stone. The dawn doorway still stands open in the same minutes. The wet cement still receives the same mark. The magnet still polarizes the same iron. The BURIN still engraves the same metal. The architect still builds from the same drawing. You see what the lineage was handing you the entire time? A precise instruction, a precise method, a precise medium, a precise moment. The number on the page in the morning by hand. The 4-part precision is the entire instruction. The number is the architect's drawing. The page is the metal being engraved. The morning is the dawn doorway. The hand is the chisel. Every element of the practice is doing specific work. None of the elements are decoration. None of the elements are arbitrary. Picture it this way. Imagine you have inherited a workshop full of the finest tools ever made. The previous owner left detailed notes on which tool to use for which job. The notes were written by hand, refined over generations, validated across thousands of pieces of work. You walk into the workshop, you can see the tools, you can read the notes. You have 2 choices. You can pick up the tools and use them the way the notes prescribe, or you can ignore the notes and try to figure out the work on your own. The lineage is the previous owner. The notes are the principles. The tools are the practices. The workshop is your inner life. The work is the construction of the conditions for your aims to arrive. Most people walk into the workshop, glance at the tools, ignore the notes, and try to do the work without instructions. The work is harder than it has to be. The results are smaller than they could be. The lineage left notes that would have made the difference, and the notes sit on the bench, unread. The morning number is one of the simplest practices in the workshop. It takes a minute. It requires a pen and a piece of paper. It works through the 6 mechanisms we have just walked through. The cost of doing it is nothing. The cost of not doing it is the difference between a polarized inner life and an inner life of canceled pulls. The difference compounds across every year of an adult life. The compound is so large that the lineage spent over a century making sure people could find the notes. You have the notes now. There is a man, somewhere, sitting at a kitchen table in the first quiet minutes of the morning, with a pen in his hand and a small card on the table in front of him. He writes a single number. He folds the card. He puts the card in his pocket. He stands up and starts his day. The act took less than 30 seconds. Inside those 30 seconds, the chisel cut. The doorway opened. The cement received the mark. The iron took another stroke of the magnet. The BURIN pressed another line into the metal. The architect received the drawing. The construction crew began the day's work. He has done this every morning for 3 years. He will do this every morning for the next 10. The number on the card has shifted upward twice in that time, as the previous numbers became reality, and a new ceiling was set. The man does not talk about the card to anyone. The card is for the deeper mind, and the deeper mind does not require external commentary. The card and the man and the pen and the morning have been working together for a long time. The results in the man's life are the visible expression of the invisible work. This is what the lineage was always pointing toward. A simple practice, executed with precision, sustained across time, producing compound results through mechanisms that operate underneath conscious awareness. The man is not motivated. The man is calibrated. He has installed the practice through enough repetitions that the practice now runs as a feature of his mornings, the same way breathing is a feature of his being awake. The 30 seconds is no longer something he has to remember to do. The 30 seconds is who he is in the first minutes of the day. The number on the card is the result he wants. The card itself is the chisel, the doorway, the cement, the magnet, the BURIN, the blueprint. The combination of the number and the card and the morning and the pen is the operating procedure the lineage spent a century refining. The procedure works because the inner mind responds the way the inner mind has always responded to multi-channel, repeated, precise, emotionalized instruction. The pen is on the table. The card is beside the pen. The morning arrives without your having to invite it. The number is the only piece that has been waiting for you to decide. Whatever number you write tomorrow morning is the instruction the deeper mind will spend the next 24 hours building from. Whatever number you write the morning after that will be the same instruction, deepening. Whatever number you write 30 days from now will have been carved, doorwayed, set in cement, polarized, engraved, and blueprinted with such repetition that the deeper mind will be operating on it as a known fact about who you are. The lineage wrote down the notes. The notes are clear. The tools are in the workshop. The morning is already on its way. The pen is waiting. The card is small enough to carry without anyone knowing. The whole practice fits in 30 seconds before the day begins. Hill knew this in 1937. Nightingale knew this in 1956. Proctor knew this for 60 years. Vossofi knows this today. The practice has been the same the entire time. The inner mind is still the inner mind. The morning is still the morning. The chisel is still the chisel. The number is the only thing that ever needs to be decided.